everyone, I'm JD from Willow Journals. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here with my reading journal and I am so glad I started this. I do love recording the books that I'm reading, especially because sometimes I forget what I've read and I forget what the book was about. So this is really helping. It brings it all back. And do you find when you read a book, like for me, when I remember the book, I don't just remember the story, but I remember where I was when I read it, what time in my life it was when I read it, and the vibe around me, that kind of thing. Like I think back to when I read my very first fantasy book series, and in one summer holidays, I was reading this series, and I remember sitting on the couch in the lounge room each day reading it, and I could tell by the movement of the sun and the shadows moving along the couch what time of day it was, because I just kept reading on that couch every day for those holidays, and this sun would move, and by the end of that week of reading, I was like, oh, it's 1 o'clock in the day, and then I looked at my watch and I was like, it is, because I could tell by the shadows moving across myself, like along the sun moving across my legs on the couch. And so like when I think of that book that I read, I think of that whole situation. And another one, I remember a phase where I was listening to one CD, it was Savage Garden Affirmation, and I played that CD over and over and over again. And I went through a phase where I played the CD in the background while I read. I know that sounds horrible to some people, having to listen to something while you're reading, but I could block it out and just read. But I remember one book, same fantasy series. Okay, this is going to be a very chatty video. Sit back and relax. I've got a lot to say about this book, so I'm in a chatty mood, it looks like. So yeah, I remember this one book, it was quite a dark book, like it was set in an underground location, and there were necromancers in this setting. And I just remember in this one CD album that kept playing on repeat, there was one particular song that was quite moody and dramatic and dark sounding and intense, and whenever that song looped around, I always think of that song now with that book because it just matched the mood of the book so well. Anyway, random. I love books so much, and how they're a way of journaling about our lives, a way of accessing memories and with those associations and seeing where we were at the time. Anyway, that was a little tangent. Welcome to this Bookstagram. No, I have a Bookstagram that I've just started. It's called Junie Desiree Reads, if you're interested. Welcome to this Booktube video. I'm so enjoying these Booktube videos too, where I get to chat about something that I love. Now this is one of my favorite books that I've read all year. It was a surprise. I only discovered it through the Psychology in Seattle fan page. So you guys know I am a lifelong patron of Psychology in Seattle. And I just love learning about psychology. It's helped me so much in my life. And to know myself and to know others and to have compassion and empathy for self and others, I love it. And to grow and heal, I love psychology. I can't speak about it highly enough. Anyway, so I was in the Psychology in Seattle fan page, and one person posted about this book that they read, and I think what jumped out at me was, because my favorite quote is the unexamined life is not worth living by Socrates. That sums up my entire existence, basically. I am a thinker, I'm an analyzer. There's not a moment that I'm not thinking about things and working things out and thinking about life and living and stuff. So as soon as I saw the title, The Examined Life, I'm like, oh, I need to check that book out. Come on. But it's about psychology, and as soon as I read the little start, you read that free sample on Amazon, I then downloaded the Kindle ebook. So the format that I read this was ebook. And just that first section, what it was about, pulled me straight in. So the book is about change, and it's about helping people change who are trapped by their own way of thinking and behaving. So it's about the therapeutic relationship. It's about this therapist and his clients, and obviously he changes details and things, or he has permission or something like that to make it, okay to write about his clients in a way that's ethical. and just about stories from them, and amazing stories. So each chapter is a story about a different client, and it's a book about loss. And this quote, because there can't be change without loss, which is a really interesting way to think about change. So true, isn't it? And maybe that's why, like, we struggle sometimes with change, because it means a loss. Like, that makes so much sense. I know, for me that was so simple but so profound. And it's a book about communication and understanding and listening, and he gives this great metaphor or analogy of tapping on a wall, and like two prisoners are separated by a wall, and they communicate by tapping and listening to each other and the tapping. And I just thought, and he's like, this book is about that wall, and how the wall is not only something that separates us, but a means of communication. They couldn't tap and listen to each other without that wall. So again, like, I'm not sure what that even means. It's so deep, but I feel like it's resonating deep within me, and it means something true. I can't quite articulate what it is, but you know it when you feel it, right? And there's so much about this book where it has examples of that, like humanity and being human and living and existence. A lot of it, you can't articulate what it is, but you can feel when it's true. You can feel when there's some profound resonating truth, even it's just in your soul, but you can't articulate it, you know? And so he describes these stories of people's living experiences, and a lot of what he points out, I'm like, yes, I resonate with that so strongly, but I don't really know what it means quite, because it's so deep and it's so profound, and it's, you know, we can't wrap our heads around the whole of human existence. Anyway, so yes, such a good book. I loved it. I mean, I could have given it 5 stars, honestly. I realized through this rating system that I'm quite stingy with my 5 stars. I probably will change it to 5 stars, because this is a book I would read right now again. The stories are just so interesting and fascinating about these people, and what you learn from it. This ticks all the boxes. Well written, very engaging writing, written sort of in a personal essay style, which I love, where it comes at it kind of sideways. It doesn't just lay it out, here's the story, da 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 da. It kind of comes at it from different angles and different perspectives, so that you get this full picture. And even though the ending might not be this nice, neat, clean ending with a moral at the end of the story or a lesson, you're just left open-ended with thought-provoking openness. And I love that. It makes you think, and it makes you wrestle, and it makes you see the world differently. It makes you see yourself differently, and it might not give you answers, but it gives you a different way of seeing, which again, I love. Oh my gosh, I love this. The more I talk about it, the more I love this book. I need to read it again. Right from the first story of the first person he was writing about, I was just like, man, that is so fascinating. So fascinating. And I love how it demonstrates, not by telling you, this is what the therapeutic relationship looks like. He does it by showing you. By telling these stories, he naturally shows you what the therapeutic relation looks like. And I love that. It's about the therapy, but it's also about the therapeutic relationship, and how the therapeutic relationship itself can be healing. Okay, and so the core idea, I guess, is that the way we were treated when we were younger is often how we treat other people. So, for example, just a loose example, if you grew up in a chaotic environment, you may set up your life in a way as an adult to bring a lot of chaos. If you grew up where, I don't know, I'll just get into one of the stories, okay? So the very first story was, okay. So this client, he would often get along with people to start off with, but had a pattern in his life where eventually he would do something shocking, and the relationship would end. And so the example in this case with the therapist knew that eventually, when there was a level of comfort, that the natural behavior would come out. Because, you know, when we just first meet someone, we're on our best behavior. It's only when we know them after a long time, when we're comfortable with them, that our natural behaviors will come out. We can't hide those things, that will naturally come out. So the therapist knew that part of the therapeutic process and relationship meant that, oh yeah, everything's going well, but he knew eventually his problems and issues would come out eventually. And so that's what happened. The guy faked his own death. Pretty shocking, right? And then I don't know how many months or how much time passed, but he got in touch with the therapist again and is like, I'm alive. And so through their talking again, what they realized was something to do with his childhood. There was a lot of chaos and lots of shock happened. And so that's what became comfortable for this person as a child, was chaos. So you can imagine when there's not chaos, you might feel tense because you're like, this is different, this is the unknown, this is scary, my life is chaos, I feel comfortable with chaos. And so I think got like shocking news was revealed to him throughout his life or something, or shocking things happened to him. And so he would often do the same to other people without knowing. It's all subconscious. And that's the whole thing. People aren't usually malicious with evil intent. But when they hurt people and do things like this and create chaos and unhealthy things in their lives, it's subconscious often because they're just reenacting what happened to them as a child to make them feel comfortable and safe and familiar. But all subconscious. And so with therapy, that's what this comes out. We can now observe it, see a pattern, go back to childhood and find why we behave and think the way we do, instead of it just being an automatic subconscious process. And then once you get that awareness, then you can create change. And that won't be an easy process. It could take a long time and may never be completely changed. But, at least you're aware now and you can have managing things and you can tell people and let them know with open communication, hey, just so you know, I have this issue. I don't mean it, but, stuff like that. Anyway, oh my gosh, there's so much in this. There was another example. There's all examples in the book, but another one that struck me was one guy, he would tell lies to people, like outrageous lies, to the point where people obviously knew that he was lying. So things like, oh, I know this famous person, or I had this really cool job, and people would know because he's been working in this job with them for the last 10 years. So they're like, we know you didn't do that job because we were working with you at that time. So, but so when he was with the therapist, he would start telling lies again, comfort, safety, and then eventually the lies came out. And what the therapist realized in himself, he noticed, this is what the therapeutic relationship is. The therapist has to realize what's going on inside of them, because that tells them how that person treats people. It tells them perhaps clues as to how they were treated as a kid by how the therapist feels in their interaction. So the therapist isn't just listening to them and listening to them. They're analyzing, or they're observing not just their words and what they're telling them, they're also observing the reactions and emotions that they're going through as well as part of the therapy. So the therapist noticed in himself that he felt like he didn't want to pull up the guy on his lies. He felt like the guy was socializing him to stay silent. And he realized, this idea of when people are caught in an outrageous lie, where everyone just knows it's so outrageous, often people don't pull it up. Often people don't go, hey, and call you out, that's not true. Often people will just, do that awkward silence, side glance thing, and everyone in the room knows it's a lie, but no one says anything. They just kind of gloss it over and move on. Okay, and so what they realized with this guy was when he was a kid, he used to wet the bed, and he wet his bed up until the age of 12, and his mum left at the age of 12 or died at the age of 12. And he stopped bedwetting. And what they've discovered, who would have known all this? This is why a therapeutic relationship helps. What they discovered was his bedwetting, each morning, when his sheets were all wet, his mum would come in and wash the sheets, fold them up, and place them folded, or set up his bed and place his pajamas underneath his pillow or something like that every single day. And she wouldn't say anything to him about the bedwetting. And I don't think they had much of a close relationship. But every night he would wet the bed. Every morning she would come in. She wouldn't say anything about it. She wouldn't, say, you're old enough now not to wet the bed or anything, or shame him in it or anything. She wouldn't say anything. But she would every day wash those sheets, prepare the bed, and put his pajamas under his pillow. And so what they discovered is that this was her acknowledge, she knew what was happening about the bedwetting. It was call it the lie or the secret, but she didn't say anything, and but he knew that she knew, obviously, because she washed everything. And so that this was like a silent communication to him of his mother's love, that she would every single night or day wash his clothes and his bed, and having those pajamas under his pillow. He felt loved by that, by his mum, because he didn't feel loved in any other way. He wasn't close with his mum, and this was the one way that he felt loved. Oh, again, subconscious, and so it was this process of a lie, not a lie, but this secret that wasn't spoken about, but everyone knew about, but cared for and loved for. So what was realised, and the bedwetting stopped at 12 when the mum died or wasn't in his life anymore. And what this therapeutic relationship, what it uncovered was this man lied because it reenacted the relationship with his mother. So when he lied, no one said anything, the way his mum didn't say anything, and everyone knew, and he knew that his mum knew because she did all those cleaning every day. And so he knew that everyone knew too, because they're doing the awkward silence and the glances, sideways glances and things. But he felt loved by that. So the same way he felt loved by his mum putting the clothes under his pillow and not saying anything, he felt loved when people didn't say anything and pull him up on his lies, but just had the awkward silence and let him get away with it. Because that's what happened with his mum. She let him get away with the bedwetting. And isn't that interesting? Like I would never put those two connections together, but through that therapeutic relationship and through that therapist realizing, wow, I feel socialized into not pulling him up on this. Why do I feel that way? And then through exploring that question, he went back and the mum didn't say anything. I don't feel that I should say something. And this actually, everyone being in on it but not saying anything, this actually makes the client feel loved. Isn't that interesting? Oh, so interesting. Anyway, so those are just two examples, and makes you want to examine your own life, right? And get more awareness about your own self. But I hope that maybe intrigued you. It's on Amazon. It's an ebook. Really interesting, fun read. If you like psychology, if you want to know about the therapeutic relationship and about therapy, this book, I love it. There's so many other examples I could go through, but we're already almost at 20 minutes, so I'm going to leave it there. Love this book so much. Okay, guys, I hope you're enjoying these Booktube videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Be sure to journal your life because your stories matter. Bye. Thank you so much to my beautiful patrons who supported me in October and allowed me to create and share videos for another month. If you'd like to become a patron in November and support what I do here, that would be so appreciated. I'll leave the link below to my Patreon in the description box below, where you get access to extra videos, first preference for my journals, behind the scenes updates, and if you're a Ruby tier or high, you get every single digital kit from my Etsy plus an extra one every month. And there are also some mail tiers. You get something sent to you in the mail.